Welcome to Dialogue. We're back, and we're continuing our series on the Jeffrey Epstein case. Today is a little different because instead of just reacting to the latest headline or, some new press release, this deep dive is dedicated to answering the specific, burning questions sent in by you, the listeners. We are going to skip the surface level gossip today. We are going to get right into the structural mechanics of this case.
And honestly, that is the only way to handle this topic. If you focus on the gossip, you miss the machinery. And the machinery is the terrifying part. While the world usually focuses on the who, the specific names in the black book, the flight logs, the truly nightmare-inducing part is the why and the how.
Exactly. We're looking at the intersection of power, secrecy, intelligence-style protection, and total systemic failure. And the goal here is to break this down cleanly. No sensationalism, but no pretending this is just a standard sex scandal. It is way bigger than that. So let's unpack this.
Let's do it.
Okay, so the first question we got, and this was by far the most common one in the inbox, is straightforward but incredibly frustrating. Why are the Epstein files still being kept from the public? Why is it so hard to get a straight answer?
Because it feels like every time we get close, another door just slams shut. It feels intentional.
It's the million-dollar question. It really is. And to answer it, you have to separate the official answer from the real answer. They are two very different things operating in parallel.
Okay, let's play lawyer for a second. What is the official shield they are using? What do they say when a judge asks why these need to stay sealed?
Well, if you ask the courts or the Department of Justice, they will give you a very polished, very legalistic response. They'll tell you it's about legal validity and privacy.
Like the usual suspect.
Exactly. They cite active or potential prosecutions, which is the standard line. You can't release evidence if you're about to charge someone, theoretically.
Theoretically. Then they talk about grand jury secrecy rules, which are historically very strict. The idea is to prevent a trial by media. And, to be fair, they also talk about protecting the identities of the victims who are minors.
Which makes sense on the surface. Of
Right.
course, you don't want to re-victimize people who were abused 20 years ago.
It does. And then there's the defamation angle. This is a big one. You can't just dump a list of names if those people hasn't been convicted of a crime, or you open the government up to massive lawsuits.
So if a file mentions someone just, attended a dinner party at his townhouse but didn't actually do anything illegal.
Right. Releasing that in the context of a sex trafficking investigation ruins their reputation forever. So, on paper, the legal explanation holds water.
But here is where it gets suspicious for me and for our listeners. That explanation feels valid for a normal case. If this was a standard fraud trial or a local corruption case, sure, I get it. But it doesn't explain the scale of this. It doesn't explain the duration. We are talking about decades of secrecy. It feels like a cover for something else. Is this just legal bureaucracy, or is it a shield?
That's exactly the right skepticism to have. Because if you peel back those legal excuses, the real reason is what we call elite exposure. It's not about procedure. It's about preventing a cascading institutional collapse.
Cascading institutional collapse. That sounds apocalyptic. You make it sound like the stock market crashes if a PDF gets released.
It's not about the market crashing immediately, but it's about the architecture of trust, the whole thing. Think about the network we were discussing here. We aren't just talking about a few bad actors in Hollywood or a couple of shady businessmen. The Epstein network intersects with heads of state, actual presidents and prime ministers. It involves intelligence agencies. It involves the biggest billionaires on the planet, royalty from multiple countries, major financial institutions, the banks that hold your mortgage elite universities, and even the people who run the media conglomerates that deliver your news.
So if you pull the thread, the whole sweater unravels.
It's worse than that. If you release the unredacted files, you aren't just embarrassing a few rich guys who made bad choices. You are undermining the legitimacy of the very institutions that rely on public trust to function. If people realize that their banks, their government, and their media were all essentially partying with a monster, and in some cases funding him, it threatens governance itself. Just imagine finding out that the people directing foreign policy or managing the global economy were compromised by a pedophile ring. How do you recover from that?
You don't. So it's not about protecting the individual. It's about protecting the brand of the institution. They can sacrifice one guy, but they can't sacrifice the reputation of, say, the State Department or a major bank.
Precisely. It's institutional self-preservation at its most raw. And then you have the darker layer under that, the intelligence entanglement.
Right, the spy angle. We hear this all the time. Epstein was an asset, Epstein was Mossad, Epstein was CIA. It sounds like something out of a movie plot, but what do we actually know about the mechanism here?
Well, look at his function. Forget about a badge or an official payroll for a second. Just look what he did. Epstein functioned as a compromising intermediary. He was a collector of compromising material.
Blackmail.
Blackmail, yes. Whether he was officially on a payroll or just a freelancer who was useful to everyone, the result is the same. He put intelligence agencies in an impossible position.
How so? Explain that impossible position. What's the bind?
Okay, imagine you are a senior official at an intelligence agency. You find out this guy has dirt on powerful foreign leaders, which is incredibly useful to you for national security, right?
Sure, that's a huge asset.
But he also has dirt on your own senators, your own donors, maybe even your bosses. Now you have two choices. Choice A. You arrest him, expose everything, and admit that you either knew about it and did nothing, which is complicity, or you were incompetent and missed a massive trafficking ring operating under your nose.
Neither of which looks good on a resume.
Not at all. Or there's choice B. You suppress the exposure. You claim national security to keep the files sealed. You choose containment over justice because the damage of the truth is perceived as greater than the damage of the silence.
And historically, they always choose containment.
Always. Because if the full network is exposed, it proves a terrifying truth that no one is untouchable. And that is the one thing the elite class cannot tolerate. The moment the public realizes that a former president or a prince can actually go down, not just get a slap on the wrist, but actually go down for good, the continuity of that elite power structure is broken.
So the secrecy isn't just a legal maneuver, it's a survival strategy for the status quo. It's the firewall keeping the castle from being stormed.
Exactly. It's the ultimate defense mechanism.
That leads perfectly into the next question from our listeners, which is the logical follow-up. Okay, say the dam breaks. Let's say the firewall fails. What are the actual implications of finding out exactly who is in those files?
If that happens, the stakes become existential. I'm not being hyperbolic. We are talking about legal and political dominoes falling in a way we haven't seen in modern history.
Walk us through the legal nightmare first. We've seen lawsuits before. Why is this different?
Well, first, statutes of limitations could be reopened in many jurisdictions. You'd see a flood of civil lawsuits, not just against the men involved, but against the institutions that facilitated them.
The banks, the universities.
The banks, the universities, the hotels, the private aviation companies. We are talking about asset seizures on a massive scale and what I call reputational annihilation. If you are a CEO of a Fortune 500 company and your name is on that list, your career is over in 5 seconds. It's done. Shareholder lawsuits alone would bankrupt companies.
But the political fallout seems even more volatile. I mean, people already hate politicians. Would this really change anything?
It would, because it changes the nature of the division. And this is crucial for you to understand. This isn't left versus right. If those files open up, you're going to see names from both parties. This is inside power versus outside power.
I like that distinction because you see people online trying to weaponize this for their political team. Oh, look at your guy, but the reality is the names cross the aisle.
They absolutely do. Exposure leads to a total collapse of moral legitimacy. If the public sees that the leadership class, regardless of party, was complicit in this, it accelerates populist movements on both the left and the right. It validates every cynic who says the system is rigged. It destabilizes diplomatic relationships, too. I mean, imagine if a sitting head of state is compromised. How do you negotiate a trade deal with a country when you know their leader is on tape doing something horrific?
It completely destroys leverage. The handshake means nothing if you know what that hand has been doing. And what about the media? This is something our audience talks about a lot. There's a huge distrust of legacy media, especially among people in their 20s and 30s. They feel gaslit.
And this would confirm that distrust in the most spectacular way. If the files come out, major outlets face an existential crisis. The question immediately becomes, why were stories killed? We know for a fact stories were killed.
Right. Vanity Fair, ABC News, there were big investigations that just got spiked.
Spiked, gone. So who had prior knowledge? If it turns out that major anchors or media executives were in that orbit or were spiking stories to protect their powerful friends, it destroys the credibility of legacy media entirely. It's the final nail in the coffin.
It's like the emperor has no clothes moment, but for the entire establishment press. It would confirm the suspicion that the news is curated, not reported?
Correct. But the deepest cut isn't legal or political. It's psychological. It's what some social scientists call moral injury.
Moral injury, I usually hear that term regarding soldiers in war. What does that look like on a societal level?
It's the public realization that the abuse wasn't hidden. It was tolerated. It's the moment you understand that the predators were known entities. They were walking red carpets. They were giving commencement speeches at Harvard. They were donating to children's charities. And the victims, they were ignored by design. When a society realizes that its heroes are monsters and its systems were designed to protect the monsters, that causes a collective psychological trauma.
That is a chilling thought. Victims were ignored by design. It wasn't an accident. It wasn't a mistake. It was the operating system.
It was the system working as intended. Exactly.
Wow. Which leads us to the question of depth. A listener asked, we know about Epstein, we know about Ghislaine Maxwell, but how deep does this actually go? Is it just a few bad apples, or is it the water they all swim in?
It goes deeper than Epstein, deeper than Maxwell, and frankly, it goes deeper than sex. This case is a masterclass in how power actually functions in the real world, outside of the civics textbooks. You can break it down into 4 distinct layers.
Okay, let's walk through them. Start with the social layer.
The social layer is all about access. In these circles, access is currency. It's everything. You trade introductions. I'll introduce you to this scientist if you introduce me to this prince. In that ecosystem, silence is enforced. And deviance, like what Epstein was doing, is tolerated. But only if the power you provide is useful. You can be a monster as long as you're a useful monster. If you bring the funding or the girls or the connections, you get a pass.
It's transactional morality. He's a bad guy, but he throws great parties and introduces me to Nobel Prize winner.
Precisely. Then you have the financial layer. And this is the one that really doesn't add up and where the smoking gun usually lies. Epstein's wealth was never explainable by any legitimate business. He didn't run a hedge fund that anyone could track. He didn't have typical clients, yet he had the full support of major global banks.
Right, banks that usually flag you if you transfer $10,000 to the wrong place. If I try to wire money for a used car, I get 3 phone calls. But he's moving millions with zero friction.
Despite repeated warnings from their own people, we know for a fact that compliance officers inside the banks flagged him. They filed suspicious activity reports, SARS. They said, this looks like money laundering. This looks like human trafficking payments. And they were overruled by senior executives. This indicates institutional laundering of risk. The banks knew, and they decided the profit or the connection was worth the risk. They calculated the cost of the fine versus the profit of the relationship.
It's just a cost of doing business to them.
A rounding error. Then there's the legal layer. We touched on this, but the 2008 Sweetheart deal is the smoking gun, isn't it? It is the definition of selective enforcement. I mean, for those who don't know the details, in 2008, Epstein was facing federal sex trafficking charges that carried a life sentence. He should have gone away forever.
That's what should have happened.
Instead, a federal prosecutor named Alexander Acosta signed a non-prosecution agreement. Epstein pled to minor state charges, served 13 months in a private wing of a county jail, and was allowed to leave 6 days a week to go to his office.
To his office. While he was supposed to be in jail for sex crimes with minors. It's insane.
It's beyond insane. But the kicker is the secret clause in the deal. The deal granted immunity not just to Epstein, but to any potential co-conspirators. It was a blanket immunity for everyone in his network, and they kept the deal secret from the victims, which is a direct violation of Crimes Victims' Rights Act.
So that wasn't incompetence. That wasn't a mistake.
No, that was the system protecting its own.
And finally, the intelligence layer. We mentioned compromise, but does it go deeper than just collecting blackmail?
I think so. Even if Epstein wasn't an official agent-like, he didn't have a badge number at the CIA or Mossad. He operated in the exact space that intelligence agencies understand and exploit. Sexual compromise and blackmail-based control. The patterns match historical intelligence operations perfectly. Foreign influence leverage, using vices to control policy. He was playing the great game, whether he was a freelancer or a patriot. He was building a library of leverage.
So he was operating a private intelligence network, essentially.
A private intelligence network funded by billionaires and protected by the state. That's the simplest way to put it.
Wow. Okay, let's unpack this next part. This is the question that disturbs people the most, I think. A listener wrote, why trafficking? Why abuse minors? These are men with infinite resources. They could have had willing adult women. Why cross that line?
This is absolutely crucial to understand. If you think this is about libido or sexual preference, you are missing the point entirely. It was never about sex. Sex was the mechanism. The goal was power, control, and silence.
Break that down for us. Why does abuse create leverage that regular affairs don't?
Here's the key concept. Consensual sex does not produce leverage. If a powerful politician has an affair with a consenting adult, it's a scandal. It's embarrassing, for sure. But he can skin it, he can apologize, go to therapy, bring his wife on stage for a press conference, and survive it. We've seen it 100 times.
Right. It's survivable, but abuse of a minor.
That's the nuclear option. There's no press conference that fixes that. There's no apology tour. It's over. That creates permanent leverage.
It's the ultimate form of control.
It is. This is the cold, calculated logic of blackmail networks. Minors can be silenced more easily than adults. They are terrified. They don't know their rights. They can be manipulated. But more importantly, abusing a minor creates a crime that you cannot spin. It guarantees that the person you have compromised will never, ever cross you.
And if everyone in the room is participating,
Then you get the concept of mutual culpability. If you and I are in a room and we both commit a heinous, unforgivable crime, I can never rat on you and you can never rat on me. We are locked together for life. It creates a bond of blood and guilt that is stronger than any contract. It consolidates the network. You can't leave.
so the horror is the point. The horror is the glue that holds the network together.
Correct. And that's why the trafficking aspect is so key. Trafficking removes autonomy. It creates dependency. It ensures the victims cannot exit safely. And it creates documentation.
The tapes. Everyone talks about the tapes, the secret cameras.
The tapes. The recording of the act is infinitely more valuable to the blackmailer than the act itself. The act is fleeting. The tape is forever. It is a sword of Damocles hanging over the head of the powerful person for the rest of their life. Do what we say, vote how we want, approve this merger or this tape leaks. It turns a powerful person into a puppet.
It's just terrifyingly logical. It's an economy of shame.
It is. And we have to touch on the elite psychology here for a moment. Why do they do it in the first place? There is an extreme entitlement, a complete detachment from consequences. When you have never heard the word no for 30 years, when you have cleared every hurdle with money, you start to believe you are above the law and above morality. It becomes a thrill-seeking escalation.
It's like they need a higher dose of the drug to get the same high. Buying a yacht isn't fun anymore, so they need something more extreme.
And that drug is transgression. Breaking the ultimate taboo confirms to them that they are gods. They can do what others cannot. It's the ultimate expression of power.
That is dark. But it explains why it was never just about sex. Okay, moving to the aftermath. Listeners are asking, Epstein is gone. Maxwell is in jail. Why hasn't the system cleaned itself up? Why does it feel like nothing changed?
Because nothing did change. Not structurally. You have to distinguish between the node and the network.
Okay, lay that out for us. Node versus network.
Jeffrey Epstein was a node. He was a central hub, yes. He was important. But he was not the network itself. He was a service provider. He was the guy running the logistics. He arranged the travel, the accommodations, the victims. He was not the ultimate beneficiary of the power. He was serving the beneficiary.
So he was the IT guy for the blackmail server.
Essentially. A very good analogy. And the IT guy is disposable. When the heat got too high, when he became a liability, the system cut the node. His death, however it happened, was convenient because it closed the legal case. It put a period at the end of the sentence, but it didn't dismantle the structure that used him. The banks are still there. The intelligence agencies are still there. The powerful men are still there. The demand for the service he provided hasn't gone away.
That explains that off feeling our listeners talk about. So many people wrote in saying they feel like the story didn't resolve. It feels like the silence is coordinated.
That intuition is 100% accurate. You are being gaslit. You are being told, the bad man is dead, justice is served, move on. But your gut tells you, wait, where is the list? Where are the other arrests? Why is Ghislaine Maxwell the only other person in handcuffs for this entire global operation?
The punishment didn't fit the crime because accountability stopped at a specific boundary.
It stopped exactly where it needed to stop to protect the system itself. Correct. This case reveals some very hard truths that we really don't want to face as a society. It reveals that justice is conditional. It depends on who you are. It reveals that power insulates itself. And it reveals that truth is managed, not revealed.
Truth is managed. That's a bumper sticker for the 21st century.
It is, and I want to be clear about that. This isn't a conspiracy theory. This isn't guys in a smoke-filled room with a globe plotting to take over the world. This is just how hierarchical systems preserve themselves. They act like a biological organism. When a limb gets gangrene, you cut it off to save the body. Epstein was the gangrene. The body is doing just fine.
So we've covered the secrecy, the fallout, the layers, the mechanism, and the survival of the system. Where does that leave us? What is the final takeaway here for someone trying to make sense of all this?
If we connect this to the bigger picture, the Epstein case isn't terrifying because of the sex crimes, and don't get me wrong, the crimes are horrific beyond words. But the existential terror comes from what it shows us about power. It shows us what happens when power no longer fears consequences.
When the guardrails are completely gone, when there's no one to say no.
Right. And once you truly understand that, once you see the mechanics of it, you stop asking the gossip questions. You stop asking who was involved, because you know the answer is everyone who mattered.
And you start asking the real question.
You start asking, why is this system designed to protect them? And until we answer that and are willing to change the answer to that, nothing changes.
That is the question we are going to leave you with today. We need to stop looking at the players and start looking at the game itself.
And maybe, just maybe, decide we don't want to play that game anymore.
Exactly. This has been a heavy one, but a really important one. We hope this answered those burning questions and gave you a framework to understand the news the next time the story breaks, because it will break again. If you enjoyed this conversation, please like, subscribe, and share this video. Also, let us know in the comments what really stood out to you in this conversation, and if there's any related topic or new topic that you would like covered in a future video.